Okay, thank you. And here we go. Welcome, Sian.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Really nice to be here and have an opportunity to come up to Corris, which I haven't ventured beyond Huntleth before. So yeah, really just stunning landscape and just beautiful long walks and just, yeah, good talks. And yeah, we've just been having a really immersive time. I don't often get sort of a couple of days where it's just sort of me and being creative. So yeah, it was wonderful to be invited this weekend and get to know Veronica and Abby and Joanne more about their work and the kind of way they approach things. So I'm just going to talk a little bit now about my practice and my processes. I'm essentially, yeah, I think it's always quite difficult to completely sort of pinpoint or give it a name that's completely encompasses what you do. But I generally I term myself as a textile artist. I have been a textile designer for many years. So the main part of my career was a textile designer, designing prints and weaves on a very sort of commercial level. And yeah, I've embarked in the last sort of 8 years on delving into the world of botanical dyeing. Yeah, so I've titled this presentation "We're All Connected." I've just given it an initial kind of sort of introduction in terms of sort of how I perceive the sort of landscape and how I approach that within my practice. I feel like my work is very much a seeping of these plants into dye pots, but I also feel that I'm himself embodying into that process. And I often look at landscape and feel that's sort of like the body of the world. And I often see sort of like shapes in the landscape. So I've titled it here, "We're All Connected, Bodyscape and Landscape." And I started to look a little bit into the word, into the sort of meaning of the word landscape. And I found it really interesting that scape then, in botanical terms, is a leafless peduncle rising from the ground, which I think is really fascinating. And the etymology then, the stem-like basal segment of the antenna of certain insects. So the image I've accompanied accompanied with the text is an exhibition I did in July 2021, where I was invited to occupy a space of a gallery called Stiwdio Maelor. So she's got a main kind of gallery space, and then she's got this wonderful, it's an old creamery, and she's got this wonderful little space down below the gallery that was just actually a storage space. So she offered this space to me, and I was just delighted. And I should continue to show you some images, but this was actually an installation put into the furnace of this space down below the gallery. And this, you know, and this fascinating little parts of a plant coming through all the sort of rubble, which always makes me feel like, yeah, nature always prevails in whatever space it exists in. So the installation begun. I did have a good body of work to put into the space. But I also wanted to kind of sort of integrate aspects of the history of the building, and the room that the installation occupied was covered in spiders' webs and insects, and then in the garden, just outside of the space, there were loads of sort of remnants that I collected. So I wanted to integrate this into the installation. So on the one side is the furnace, and I really wanted to sort of blend the pieces into the space, and the colouring of the space was really in tune with what I was immersing into the space. So all these, yeah, this is an assemblage of my explorative work for my MA practice then, and it was a module where we had a period of time to really kind of explore and try different materials. But during the sort of pandemic period, we had some challenges. So we had to be a little bit resourceful. We were not allowed to use the facilities. So I just had to be quite resourceful about what it is I wanted to use. So I had gathered hundreds of these fruit packaging, and I'd stored them up in the top of the studio. So I just began to use those as a vessel in terms of as I cut these little vessels out from the cardboard, it just felt like every little piece just fitted perfectly in the sort of cusp of my hand, and it just felt like then all the things that I had collected in my studio, I found that I had all these little vessels then to contain all the gatherings and collected plant matter. So a lot of the plant matter that I have used within the installation is from the process of the dyeing process then. So this is the wall side then, where I've hung all the dyed pieces, which I brought a lot of those to show the group this weekend. So they're all essentially my kind of samples of all the plants I've foraged and certain plants that I've bought, and plant roots. So this just gave me an opportunity to showcase these pieces using wool, using fleece. These are all I really try to source locally, and then plant matter comes from my local environment or from my garden. The yellow in the little vessel here is the petals from the woad plant. I don't know if anybody has probably fairly familiar with woad in terms of Celts use it as wall paint, but it was also used for dyeing uniforms and was a very popular sort of medieval dye. So so these are all essentially fragments and remnants of plant matter, and I've integrated into the installation then collected pieces then from the garden of the gallery. I had all these tiny little things, and then I realized that I'd also was a bit of an avid collector of cardboard, and I don't like to throw things away, and I had all these little matchboxes, and they were just a perfect shape to contain. So I think very much my work is about gathering, containing, and there's an aspect of sort of nurturing in this kind of process. It's almost as if I'm wanting to care for all these, but also collect them to draw attention to the smaller things in life, all the unlooked, the kind of unspoken sort of aspects of the world around us.
So yeah, a few more images. There were some windows on one side, and these were the windows that that had all the spiders' webs. And the curator of the exhibition said to me, "Oh, would you like me to clean? Would you like to clear up and clean all the cobwebs off?" And I was very happy for the cobwebs to stay. I wanted this idea of it also being occupied by insects and another form of life, really, so that I can make these things. But then I also feel like, you know, there's an element of kind of letting go of the work and letting the spiders kind of do their work too. So there are a few images of the spiders occupying the forms across the window and just adding kind of extra lines, and these lines of sort of these lines of, I see them as lines of kind of connection between the objects that I'm presenting. So these are khadi cotton bags that I've made. And khadi cotton was a revolutionary cloth, really, that Gandhi wore. It's a cloth that Gandhi wore, and all his followers, and that was the cloth that he would sit and spin as he spoke, and that was the cloth that he wanted people to be making from home, very much in sort of retaliation to the British textile industry. So I see it as a kind of sort of a quite a radical cloth, really, and I have volunteered and worked at quite a lot of conferences, natural dye conferences that have happened in India, and I have quite a sort of a strong connection there. So this is cloth collected from travels. So these are a few images of the space, of the objects that I was presenting. Yeah, getting occupied and consumed by the spiders' webs, and that's a bit of ash on the floor. So very much just sort of looking at remnants. And again, yeah, very happy for the spiders to do their work. And there was a little bit of breeze coming through the windows too, and so there was a bit of movement, and I think my work is very much about kind of that sort of integration of the elements, and letting the elements perhaps take over. I just want to add, we did something quite nice today. I put a piece of the workshop that we did yesterday with Joanne. I took a piece of unfired clay then out into the on our walk today, and so I've left that kind of out to sort of sit in the environment and see what happens, and hopefully Veronica and Abby might get a chance to check in on that at some point. But yeah, I think that's very much about me letting go and working with the elements. So just another image of this is using madder root then, which is a dye that was used for Welsh costume and red sort of military jackets before the chemical dyes came about. There's actually a very small little egg-shaped vessel down below that has the madder root. So I'm very much about sort of presenting the full sort of process of my work. It's not just about kind of putting colour on cloth. It's very much about showcasing those hidden parts of the process. I've got a little bit of writing to read to you from an amazing exhibition, which I didn't get to see because of the pandemic, but they were very good at showing the exhibition online, and there's some wonderful writing, and it's called The Botanical Mind, and it was on at the Camden Arts Centre. So I just want to read it a little bit to you, because it's just really sort of encapsulates a lot of my thinking. Plants eat sunlight.
stretching up to catch the photons that stream from the surface of the sun. They convert them through photosynthesis into energy and matter, which in turn produces the conditions for all life on Earth. From the breathable air of our atmosphere to every kind of food and energy to insects and animals that in turn become food and energy for others. Plants are the starting point for all of this. They harvest the light of the sun and use it to produce the world and life in all of its forms. Plants are the world, and they are produced and inhabited this world into which we have so recently emerged over millions of years. A far more ancient form of life than any insect or animal, they are archives of sunlight, celestial intermediaries who continue to shape the very plant and all life on it. And whilst they have the primal and original relationship with light and the heavens, they are equally engaged with the terrestrial, burrowing into the depths of the ground, into soft, damp darkness and mineral-rich obscurity. Over millennia, they have mixed air, water, light, and earth into endless complexities of form, shape, color, and chemistry, into soils, scents, flavors, fruits, flowers, substance, seeds, and matter. In Jain philosophy, plants were seen as the fifth element after fire, air, earth, and water. In fact, they are living crucibles of all of these. They may not have eyes as we understand them, or mouths or ears or brains, but they hold a deep, slow, ancient knowledge of what it is to be in the world, and what it is to make a world of what, in the end, the world is. Plants are the real mediators. They are the first eyes that appeared and opened themselves onto the world. They are the gaze that came to perceive it in all its forms. The world is above all, everything the plants could make of it. Yeah, so I think there's always an element of light, and yeah, and from that extract, that's, you know, light is the is everything to plants. So this is my my studio and a bench in my studio, just to sort of give you an idea of kind of all the many bits and pieces that were collected and formed. And I think today I may have kind of stopped and started everybody along the journey, because it's, yeah, sort of like, well, I'm just going to pick this up. I'm just going to pick up a handful of earth, and I'm just going to. But everybody collectively, yeah, we all collected the lichen for the dyeing, and but yeah, I do find it very difficult to not to come back after a walk without anything. So yeah, so as I've mentioned, the main sort of part of my practice is working with botanical dyes. I try to forage as much as I can for plant materials. There's some things that I have started to grow, some successfully, some not. And especially the madder that the madder root, madder plant, I have not had very great success with growing. And it takes a long time to be able to harvest the roots, maybe a couple of years. But I have some woad growing in the garden. But these are pieces where I have made ink from the madder root, and yeah, I feel my practice is very much based on this sort of the alchemy of combining plant matter, and these are actually combined. This is actually combining ash with madder root, and the ash then the madder really responds to alkalinity, and the mix of the madder and the ash, is wood ash from the fire, just creates these lovely sort of additional kind of tones. You've got the sort of browny red, but then when that meets with the ash, you get these beautiful sort of pinks, smoky kind of pinks. So yeah, as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, I really feel my practice is very much about the immersion of body, cloth, and thread within the dye pot, but it's very much sort of a process that starts right from the walking, the collecting, and at times then, you know, I've really noticed that there's, you know, as our planet is changing, you know, there's times when I've collected things in the middle of November that possibly then aren't there the next year or something. Not that they've kind of disappeared completely, but that the strong winds have taken all the leaves off, and so, you know, this is very much sort of part of my documenting the process as well, is looking at how things change within the environment. So this is a pot of birch leaves, and I dye with downy birch and silver birch, and you do get some changes in tones. Some slightly more greeny, and then as I mentioned, sometimes some years or actually different times of the year too. We've talked about that this afternoon, about different times of the year can yield different colours. And then it also depends on the quality of your water. It depends on the day. So, some people even believe that it depends on your mood and on the day and what you kind of sort of put into the pot. I spent much of the that initial sort of, you know, it's very difficult not to talk about sort of pandemic. Try to sort of not bring it into things, but I think it was a period of time where I, you know, as most of us then had a period of time where we were kind of at home, this sort of sessile, always look at it being a sort of a time of being quite rooted into where you are, and I really took that on during the sort of during some of those lockdowns. And you know, there's daily walks, then finding out much more about my environment and foraging much more, and finding the gorse, finding the nettles, and finding different places for, you know, to forage for them. There's a meadow sweet, and I do have a very much an Asian sort of sense of aesthetics. I grew up I was born in Wales, but lived here until I was about 5, and have led a fairly sort of nomadic childhood. But part of my childhood was spent in Malaysia, and very much with the, you know, at my parents' house, just constantly sort of living amongst sort of Asian textiles, and so I think that really is very much part of my practice, and I'm sort of constantly kind of searching for sort of connections between my Welsh and Far Eastern background. And I guess there was a little bit of the attraction meeting Veronica too, in terms of her coming from being in Wales, and then, you know, and coming from Australia too, you know, and I think, you know, just always perpetually trying to sort of make connections with that. Oh, lost my cursor. There we go. Yeah, and these are a couple of pieces, quite new pieces, where I've been laying plant matter and just letting it dry, and you know, and this is actually plant matter that I have dyed with as well. So it's already kind of gone through the process of extracting, you know, of putting the colour onto the cloth. But you know, and you're left with all this amazing sort of plant matter, and you know, and the previous photograph was where I was actually drying some of the plant matter out, rolling pieces of paper out, drying it out in the sunshine. So again, this whole sort of elemental aspect to the process of my work. And then again, using, you know, just collecting all and drying all the leftover sort of plant matter, and I guess with these images, I'm very much sort of trying to convey this process of sort of extracting, exhausting the colour from the plant, but not wanting to disregard and just sort of throw away the plant matter afterwards. But very much kind of, I suppose it's a kind of a ritual of sort of, I don't know, not sound of honouring the plant world and its incredible sort of intelligence. This is one of the drawers in my studio. So this sort of like this kind of need to want to archive and this element of sort of binding cloth, wanting to sort of protect and conserve and nurture and care for, you know, everything that I'm collecting. So yeah, there's sort of very reflective of I think Veronica and I were talking about sort of the multiplicity and the obsession that you sort of get when you start making, you have a sort of a set form, and it is compulsive, but it just becomes this form that, you know, that you're able to sort of convey every sort of little aspect of what you're collecting. And yeah, I'm using making ink then from the plant matter. So this is nettle ink then that I've modified with some ferrous sulfates and iron. But I think I'm always wanting to kind of capture the process. I don't just want to sort of have this final kind of piece. I think there's an element of things constantly sort of evolving and devolving within my working processes. So yeah, taking photographs of it, you know, these beautiful kind of globules of ink before it dries, and so capturing that. This was a piece where this was birch leaf ink then, and I actually painted this. This is onto Chinese brush painting paper, which just takes the ink really sort of beautifully. I wanted to paint with the seconds. A lot of my work is about sort of the element and process of sort of aging and time, and I painted these strokes then with the seconds of the clock, and it was very immersive and almost quite meditative, and I got quite lost, and there were moments where I completely sort of I wasn't listening to the clock, and I was sort of in my own rhythm, which was a really interesting experiment. So I did a series of drawings with some of the walks in my local woodland. I started picking up a particular lichen, which we have dyed with today, actually, Usnea rubicunda, and that only grows quite sort of high up in the trees. And yeah, this sort of fascination with lichen led me to sort of look into its kind of function, and perhaps what it sort of indicates. And it is a bioindicator, which means it only thrives in clean air, and it really made me sort of think about lichen and lungs. It's coming back to this whole thing of the landscape, you know, as if this sort of the body of landscape, and underneath that there's all these elements that help it to work, and just like our own bodies too. So that looking at the, you know, the structures, the similar structures of lichen and lungs, and the lungs obviously, you know, we take in the air, and lichen is there as an indicator of the quality of the air, which led me on to sort of think about
looking after our own, looking after our external woodland, but looking after also our internal woodland. So just making connections between the human and non-human world, and again sort of really reaffirming that we are all the same, we're all connected, we're made up of the same matter. So this artwork, I'm part of a sort of, we don't call ourselves anything, but it's 4 of us artists, and we're very good friends, but we also have a very, we share an affinity for natural processes and using natural materials. And we decided as a group to donate work to our local hospital during the pandemic. And it was actually for the staff then, so that the artwork went into their staff room. So this is just a letter that we wrote to them, just to sort of convey our thanks and gratitude, but also just as, yeah, to put an element of nature into their working environment. This is another lichen lung drawing. I've also been very interested in exploring more about lichen within our environment. I took part in a sort of a lichen, it was a lichen survey with a local ecologist in Pembrokeshire, and we went up to this beautiful woodland which you would never have imagined was there, and it was a very misty day. You know, we started walking from down below, and I just thought there can't be any sort of woodland up there, it's just completely shrouded in mist. But as we climbed up, there was this tiny sort of patch of woodland with sessile oaks growing. And I can't for the life of me remember this, the ecologist's name, but he showed us then how to identify lichen and how to measure the air quality, which was really fascinating. And he actually, so it was this was part of organised by a local organisation then who have wind turbines and are very much into sort of renewable energy, and they've been fighting to protect this little bit of woodland. So they asked for the survey to be conducted, so if there were precious sort of very rare forms of lichen in the woodland, then they'd be able to sort of present that to help with their sort of protecting this woodland. And we did manage to find elf's ear lichen, which indicates very, very old, ancient woodland. So they were, you know, really, really pleased that they'd be able to present that back and to help save this patch of woodland. So on another note, I put these in as a kind of like quite a comical thing. It was a very interesting project that I haven't ever done anything like it. Probably will never do it. But it was I was asked by, so this is a photograph of Sam Langdon, who's an ecologist then. She was based in Pembrokeshire, she's not now, but she had some funding from an organisation called ARG UK. She wanted to raise awareness in schools and within the community about the sort of decline of adders and the decline of sort of the environment for adders to live in on the Pembrokeshire coast. So she commissioned me to create a family of adders then, so a male and a female and a baby adder, and they needed to be exactly, they needed to be, you know, completely lifelike, and they also needed to reticulate so that she could move them about and take them to schools and help sort of raise awareness and help, you know, with the sort of fears that people have of snakes and within the environment. So yeah, I've added this in as a sort of an interesting project that I was part of. So part of that project then, Sam also asked me to do a workshop which was looking at the environment that the adders live in.
Sam also worked with a local farmer in St David's, and we could go to sort of collect and forage for plants on his land. He had also kind of designated an area of his land. We were talking yesterday about sort of, no, it was on Friday, wasn't it, with Matilda, about farmers and the sort of knowledge they have of land. So he had designated a part of his farm to sort of rewild and help the adders kind of come back into that sort of area. So we foraged in that part of his farm and collected plant matter then that was part of the adder habitat. So we did workshops, and we also worked with a local quilting group then who, so all the dyeing that we did went into making a quilt, which went up in an exhibition at Oriella Park in St David's. Yeah, another community workshop. This was actually a project that was organised by allan, and she asked people to come and stitch trees. So I organised quite a few events at our local museum, Narberth Museum, and we have recently had a Syrian family move, quite a big Syrian family move to Narberth, and part of Allan project was to it was highlighting the plight of refugees and their journeys, and she initiated the project with the use of using the tree as a symbol, and so people embroidered their own version of a tree and then put a little label on to say what it was that what their tree sort of represented. So this went into a massive sort of exhibition. I think it's still going on, and it was sort of described as a collective forest, and there's about 6,000 trees currently. So and I think they're still adding more trees to it. So another project that I was just a part of. Keep losing my cursor. Here it is. How are we doing for time? Are we all right? Are we okay? 22. Oh, okay, all right. So there's another project with I was involved in and was commissioned to complete was at my local museum, and it was funded by Cyd-fyw, Contemporary Art Society of Wales, and we had the opportunity to delve into the archives of the museum. I chose this single clog, and had an opportunity then to sort of research into the making of clogs and the wood that's used, and it's mainly alder, because this was the first form of kind of like this outdoor shoe before Wellington boots. And so alder always grows by rivers. So yeah, just sort of move on from that. There's this is an apron that I created for the project. So the project was called Mapping Marks, and very much looking at the sort of the clog maker and all his tools. And I digitally printed onto alder veneer. I drew around all the feet of my family, and it was I named the piece on with the outlines of feet, because a clog maker would have made the shoes especially for especially it would be made to measure. They weren't sort of off the shelf. So I reinterpreted that and drew around the feet of my family and created sort of a family of feet templates then out of the alder veneer. Yeah, so that's on permanent display at Narberth Museum. Within their sort of they've got an area where they've got shoemaking objects. So that led on to another community quilt then, where we dyed with madder and woad, then two very much sort of dyes that are have a strong sort of sense of history in Wales, and that was the quilt. I was invited to contribute to an exhibition called Material Flow in Stroud. And this is sort of moving on from the madder and the woad, actually, because the project was about Stroud cloth then, that was traded with First Nation in America, and they would have worn their sort of buckskin, but they were very keen to trade fur then with Stroud then. So Stroud made this incredible cloth that was dyed with madder and woad. So I shall just skip through those and show you the final pieces. So that they were both dyed with woad and madder. And these pieces were sort of the inspiration, which I naturally dyed leather and suede. So these are very much about sort of like the balance within the earth. Let's flip on to the next one. So just coming back, this is coming back to my my MA work then. So I'm due to finish in, we'll hopefully have an exhibition in May. So this is a move on from the explorative work that I did and exhibited in Stiwdio Maelor that I showed you at the beginning. This, just to show you that these just sit perfectly sort of in the cusp of the hands. Again, emphasizing this sort of need to nurture and care for our environment. There's just a little sort of extract from a book by Catherine Dormer, who writes about each chapter is sort of an element of the sort of the textile. There's a chapter on sort of fraying, there's a chapter on folding, there's a chapter on seaming, and so this is just a little extract which I hope sort of like will give you an idea of where I'm sort of hoping to take these pieces. So when the threads become loosened from those with which they are intertwined, at the sight of the frayage, they can form new sets of relationships within the assemblage and can be drawn together with a different set of allies. I guess I'm just really trying to have to open up conversations between all these elements, and open up conversations about our environment and environmental change and ecological change, and yeah, and I think it's I think we're all asking each other the same sort of questions in terms of and how we deal with it, really. And I think we just have to just keep sort of keep responding, keep presenting, keep raising awareness of all these unspoken sort of traces. And yeah, so this is just part of my MA work at the moment, using my natural dye cloths, but also integrating some digital printing. And I have a little bit of an obsession with suitcases. I came to Stiwdio Maelor with a suitcase as well. It's just sort of probably seems to reflect my nomadic childhood, and this sort of but yeah, just like I like old suitcases, I like history. So again, that's just part of my explorative work with the MA. the embodiment, and yeah, these tracing around my hand, installing kind of seeds, as if there's sort of like a regenerative sort of aspect. How are we doing for time, people? Are we kind of we all right? Oh, it says on here, yes, so 10:02. Okay, right. This is actually we were pressing clay into the bricks yesterday, which Joanna kind of mentioned. So I thought I'd just add a couple of images of what we did, and of course, yeah, the lichens. I had to have the lichens in there. Yeah, so just just sort of end there. Really, this is just an image of some things that we collected in the old slate mine. And then a sort of a gathering of pine needles sort of being sort of forced by the wind and the rain into a crevice in the stone. Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of me, really. I just wanted to thank Veronica and Abby and Joanna for a really, really lovely weekend.